The stars burned cold above the throne world of Korra. Queen Vela sat upon her seat of black crystal, watching the endless parade of servants move through her palace like shadows. She had ruled the Korran Empire for 300 years. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like water frozen in moonlight. Her eyes held the color of dying suns, orange and gold. And they missed nothing. She was beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful, sharp, dangerous, perfect. The Korran people had conquered 12 star systems. They had built cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants. They had created weapons that could crack planets like eggs. But there was one thing they feared more than any enemy. Humans. Not because humans were strong. They were not. A single Korran warrior could kill 10 human soldiers without breaking a sweat. Human bodies were soft. They broke easily. They lived short lives, sometimes only 80 or 90 years. They were emotional creatures who made decisions with their hearts instead of their minds. No. The Korran feared humans for a different reason. Humans were infectious. Not with disease, but with something worse. Ideas, feelings, hope, love. 300 years ago, before Vela took the throne, a Korran general fell in love with a human woman. Her name was lost to history now, erased from all records. But the story remained, whispered in dark corners where the queen's spies could not hear. The general had been the greatest warrior of his age. He had conquered 3 star systems for the Empire. His name was spoken with respect and fear across the galaxy. Then he met her, a simple human woman captured during a raid on a mining colony. She was supposed to be a servant, nothing more. A creature to clean his quarters and bring his food. But something changed. The general began to smile. He laughed at things that were not funny. He wrote poetry, terrible poetry, that made no sense to Korran minds. He spoke of beauty and kindness and the warmth of holding another person close. His fellow generals thought he had gone mad. Perhaps he had. But it was a beautiful madness, a sweet sickness that spread through his soul like fire through dry grass. He freed his human servants. He spoke against the Empire's practice of using humans as slaves. He stood before the old king and demanded change. The king had him executed. The human woman was killed too, of course. But before she died, she smiled. She actually smiled, as if death meant nothing compared to what she had experienced. As if love was worth any price. That smile haunted the Korran Empire for generations. Vela remembered hearing the story as a child. Her mother, the old queen, had told it as a warning. Never let a human close to your heart, her mother had said. They will poison you with their emotions. They will make you weak. When Vela took the throne, she made it law. The prohibition of interspecies bonding. That was its official name. The common people called it the love law. It was simple and brutal. Any Korran who formed an emotional attachment to a human would be exiled to the frozen moons of the Outer Rim. Any human who seduced a Korran would be executed immediately. For 300 years, the law held. The Korran Empire remained pure, cold, perfect. Vela never questioned it. Why would she? She had never felt love. She did not understand why anyone would want to. Love was weakness. Love was chaos. Love was the enemy of order, and order was everything. Her days were filled with meetings and decisions. Trade agreements with the Novan Federation. Military reports from the border worlds. Scientific discoveries that might give the Empire an advantage over its enemies. She worked from the moment the artificial sun rose over her palace until long after it set. At night, she sat alone in her private chambers. The walls were made of glass that looked out at the stars. Sometimes she watched them for hours, those tiny points of light scattered across the darkness. Each one was a sun. Each sun might have planets. Each planet might have life. The universe was so vast, so full of possibilities. and she controlled a small piece of it. 12 star systems, hundreds of billions of Koran citizens, the largest empire in the known galaxy. Yet sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, she felt something strange. A hollow feeling in her chest, like a room that should have furniture but stood empty. She did not know what it was. She did not have a word for it. Loneliness, perhaps. But Karen Queens did not get lonely. They were above such things. Her closest advisor was a male named Rock. He was old, older than Vila, with gray skin and eyes that had seen too much. He had served her mother before her, and her grandmother before that. He was loyal, efficient, and completely without emotion. "Your Majesty," he said one morning, entering her throne room with a data tablet in his hand. "We have received troubling news from the border." Vela straightened on her throne. "Speak. A human vessel has entered our space. A diplomatic ship from Earth. Earth, the human homeworld. A small blue planet orbiting an average yellow star." Vala had seen images of it. It looked fragile, like a drop of water floating in the void. How such a weak world had produced such a dangerous species, she would never understand. What did they want? She asked. They claimed to seek peace. They wished to negotiate an end to the border conflicts. Vila almost laughed. Almost. Karen Queens did not laugh, but the urge was there. Peace? We have been fighting humans for 200 years. They have lost every major battle. Their colonies burn. Their fleets are scattered. Why would we want peace when victory is so close? Rock bowed his head. That is what I told them, Your Majesty. But their ambassador insists on speaking with you directly. He says he carries a message that will change everything. Humans always think they can change everything, Vala said. That is their greatest flaw. They believe in things that are impossible. Hope, change, love. She spoke the last word like it was poison. What is this ambassador's name? Rock checked his tablet. Tay. His name is Tay. He's young for a diplomat, only 32 Earth years. But his record is impressive. He has negotiated peace treaties with 3 other species. The Novans respect him. Even the Krell have spoken well of him. The Krell respected a human? That was surprising. The Krell were ancient beings who respected nothing and no one. They had existed for millions of years and viewed all younger species as children playing with dangerous toys. Interesting, Vila said. Very well. I will meet this human ambassador. Bring him to the palace. But make sure he understands the rules. One wrong word, one sign of disrespect, and he will learn why humans fear the Koran Empire. Rock bowed and left. Vala sat alone on her throne, thinking. A human who had earned the respect of the Krell. A diplomat who had achieved the impossible 3 times over. She had met many humans in her long life, mostly prisoners and servants. They had all been the same, weak, afraid, broken by the weight of Karn power. But this one might be different. She found herself curious, which was strange. She had not been curious about anything in decades. Her life had become routine, predictable, safe. Each day was like the day before. Each year blended into the next dot. Maybe that was why she agreed to the meeting. Not because she wanted peace, but because she wanted something new. Something unexpected. Something to break the endless cycle of sameness that had become her existence. She did not know it then, but that decision would change everything. Not just for her, but for the entire galaxy. The human ship arrived 3 days later. It was small, barely larger than a corn shuttle. Its hull was silver and blue, painted with the symbol of Earth, a simple circle representing their fragile planet. Vila watched it land from her throne room window. Such a tiny vessel. Such a tiny species. Yet they had survived 200 years of war against the most powerful empire in the galaxy. They had lost millions of their people, dozens of their colonies, hundreds of their ships. But they kept fighting. They never gave up. Why? Vala had asked that question many times. She had studied human history, their wars and their cultures and their strange beliefs. She understood their technology, their biology, their military tactics. But she never understood their spirit. That unbreakable thing inside them that refused to die. No matter how many times it was beaten down, some of her advisors said it was stupidity. Humans were too dumb to know when they were defeated. Others said it was pride. Humans could not accept that they were inferior to the Koran. But Vila suspected it was something else. Something she could not name because she had never felt it herself. The doors to her throne room opened. Rock entered first, followed by a squad of royal guards in their black armor. And behind them, walking with his head held high, was the human Tay. He was not what she expected. Human males were usually large and loud. They puffed out their chests and spoke in deep voices, trying to seem bigger than they were. They were intimidated by Korean royalty, as they should be. But this one was different. He was of average height for a human, with black hair cut short and eyes the color of dark wood. His face was calm, almost peaceful. He wore simple clothes, a gray suit with no decorations or medals. He carried no weapons, no data tablets, nothing at all. He walked toward the throne like he belonged there. Not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. Like a man who knew exactly who he was and did not need to prove it to anyone. When he reached the proper distance, he stopped. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply looked up at Vela with those dark eyes and smiled. "Queen Vela," he said. His voice was soft, gentle, like water flowing over stones. "Thank you for seeing me. I know your time is V." Tay stood before the most powerful being in 12 star systems, and he was not afraid. He had prepared for this moment his entire life. Every book he had read, every language he had learned, every negotiation he had survived, had led him here, to this cold throne room on a frozen world, facing a queen who could kill him with a single word. She was beautiful. He had seen images of Korean royalty before, but they did not capture what she truly was. Her blue skin seemed to glow in the pale light. Her golden eyes burned with intelligence and power. She sat on her throne like she was born there, like the universe itself had been created just to put her in that seat. But there was something else in those eyes. Something she probably did not even know was there. Sadness. Emptiness. The look of someone who had everything and nothing at the same time. Tay had seen that look before. On Earth, in the faces of the old and the lonely. People who had lived too long and loved too little. People whose hearts had turned to stone because they had forgotten how to feel. He began his story. 300 years ago, he said, a Korean general fell in love with a human woman. You know this story. Everyone knows it. But you do not know the truth of it. You only know the version your empire wants you to believe. Vila's eyes narrowed. And what is the truth, human? The truth is that the general was not poisoned or corrupted. He was awakened. For the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to be alive. Not just existing, not just surviving, but truly living. With purpose. With passion. With love. Love is weakness, Vila said. The words came automatically, like she had said them 1,000 times before. Is it? Tay took a step closer. The guards tensed, but Vila raised a hand to stop them. Let me ask you something, Your Majesty. In 300 years of rule, have you ever felt truly happy? Not satisfied. Not proud. Happy. That warm feeling in your chest that makes you want to smile for no reason. Vila did not answer. She did not need to. Her silence said everything. I thought so, Tay said softly. You have power. You have wealth. You have an empire that stretches across the stars. But you do not have happiness. You do not have love. And without those things, what is the point of all the rest? The point is order, Vela said. The point is strength. The point is keeping my people safe from chaos and destruction. Safe from what? Tay spread his arms wide. Safe from feeling? Safe from connection? Safe from the one thing that makes life worth living? He shook his head. That is not safety, Your Majesty. That is a prison. A prison made of laws and fear and cold, empty nights. The throne room was silent. Vela stared at this strange human who spoke to her like no one had ever spoken to her before. He did not beg. He did not threaten. He simply told the truth, and the truth was like a knife cutting through the walls she had built around her heart. Why did you really come here? She asked. Her voice was quieter now, less certain. Because I believe there is still hope for your people, Tay said. I have met many Korin in my travels. Soldiers, merchants, scientists. They are not the cold machines your empire pretends they are. They feel things. They want things. They dream of lives filled with more than duty and obligation. But they are afraid. Your laws have taught them to be afraid of their own hearts. And you think you can change that? Vela almost laughed. One human alone against an empire of trillions? I do not need to change the empire, Tay said. I only need to change one person. The person at the top. The one who makes the laws. The one who could end this with a single word. He was talking about her. He had come all this way, risked his life, just to try to change her mind. The arrogance of it was staggering. And yet, there was something in his eyes that made her want to listen. Something genuine and warm and hopeful. Something she had never seen in the eyes of any Korin. You are either very brave or very stupid, Vela said. Tay smiled. My mother always said I was both. Despite herself, Vela felt her lips twitch. Was that almost a smile? She could not remember the last time she had smiled. Your Majesty, Rock interrupted, stepping forward. This human is wasting your time. He speaks of feelings and dreams like a child. Let me have him executed and be done with this farce. Vela looked at her old advisor. Rock had served her faithfully for centuries. His advice had always been sound, always practical, always cold. He was everything a Korin should be. But looking at him now, she saw something she had never noticed before. He was empty, hollow, a shell going through the motions of life without ever really living. Was that what she had become too? No, she said. The word surprised her almost as much as it surprised Rock. The human will not be executed. Not yet, Your Majesty? Rock's gray face showed rare emotion, confusion. He came as a diplomat, Vela said. He will be treated as a diplomat. Prepare quarters for him in the guest wing. He will remain here as our guest, until I decide what to do with him. But the law, I made the law, Vela said sharply. I will decide how it is applied. Rock bowed stiffly. As you command, Your Majesty. The guards escorted Tay away. As he left, he turned back to look at Vela one last time. His dark eyes met her golden ones, and something passed between them. Not words, not even thoughts, just a feeling small and fragile, like the first green shoot pushing through Snowdot. Then he was gone, and Vela was alone on her throne. She sat there for a long time, thinking. The human's words echoed in her mind. A prison made of laws and fear and cold, empty nights. Was that what her empire had become? Was that what she had become? She thought about her mother, the old queen, who had died alone in this very palace. She had ruled for 500 years, the longest reign in Korin history. She had been respected, feared, obeyed. But in the end, she had died with no one holding her hand. No one crying for her. No one who truly loved her. Vela had been there at the end. She had watched her mother take her last breath. There had been no peaceful smile, no sense of a life well lived. Just emptiness. Just cold, tired emptiness. And then nothing. Was that her future too? Centuries more of rule, of power, of respect, and then a cold death in an empty room? The thought terrified her. And Karin queens were not supposed to feel terror. That night, she could not sleep. She stood at her window, watching the stars, thinking about the human in the guest wing. What was he doing right now? Was he afraid? Was he planning escape? Was he sleeping peacefully, dreaming of that strange thing called love? She found herself curious. More than curious. She wanted to talk to him again. She wanted to hear more of his stories. She wanted to understand how a creature so weak, so fragile, so temporary, could be so full of light that it was dangerous. This curiosity. It was exactly what the old stories warned about. Humans were infectious. Their ideas spread like disease. But maybe, just maybe, it was a disease she needed to catch. The next morning, she did something she had never done before. She visited a prisoner personally. She did not bring guards. She did not bring rock. She went alone, dressed in simple clothes instead of her royal robes, her face hidden by a hood. The guest wing was luxurious by most standards, but it was still a prison. The doors were locked. The windows were sealed. Tay was sitting by the window when she entered, looking out at the frozen gardens below. "I wondered when you would come," he said without turning around. "How did you know it was me? Who else would it be?" He turned to face her. His smile was gentle, warm. "A queen who visits prisoners in secret. You are full of surprises, Your Majesty." "Do not call me that," she said. "Not here. Not when it is just us. Then what should I call you?" She hesitated. No one had asked her that question in centuries. She was always Your Majesty, or my queen, or sometimes just Queen Vila. But underneath all those titles, she had a name. A simple name that her mother had given her. "Vila," she said. "Just Vila, Vila." He spoke her name like it was something precious. "That is a beautiful name. In my language, it means sail. Like the sail of a ship that catches the wind." "I did not know that." "There is a lot you do not know about humans," Tay said. "Just as there is a lot I do not know about Karin. But that is why I am here. To learn, to understand. To build bridges instead of walls." Vila sat down across from him. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Tell me about your home." And so he did. He talked for hours, and she listened. He told her about oceans so vast you could not see the other side. About mountains that touched the clouds. About forests where the trees were so thick the sunlight never reached the ground. About cities that never slept and villages where everyone knew everyone else's name. He told her about music. The Karin had music, of course, but it was structured, mathematical, precise. Human music was different. It was messy and emotional and unpredictable. It could make you cry or laugh or dance without knowing why. He sang her a song. His voice was not perfect, but it was real, full of feeling. It was a song about a man who loved a woman he could never have. About watching her from afar, knowing she would never be his, but loving her anyway because love was not about ownership. It was about giving yourself to another person without expecting anything in return. When he finished, Vila realized her cheeks were wet. She was crying. She had not cried since she was a child, hundreds of years ago. "What is this feeling?" she whispered. "This pain in my chest? This strange, sweet pain?" The week passed like a dream slipping away at dawn. Each day felt shorter than the last. Each night grew more precious. Val and Tay spent every possible moment together, knowing that their time was running out like sand through an hourglass. During the day, Vila played her part. She attended meetings, made decisions, and pretended to be the cold queen her people expected. But inside, her mind was racing. She was planning, preparing, building a case that might save everything she loved or destroy everything she had built. Tay helped her. He was not just a diplomat. He was a scholar, a student of history and philosophy. He knew things about the Koran Empire that even Vila did not know. He had spent years studying her people, searching for common ground, looking for ways to build bridges between species. Your empire was not always like this, he told her one evening. They were sitting in her private chambers, the first time she had brought him there. Outside, the artificial sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Before the law, before the fear, your people were different. How do you know this? Vila asked. I found records. Old records from before the Prohibition. Some of them were in human archives. Some I found in the neutral zones. Others I discovered on my own. He pulled out a small data device. Listen to this. He pressed a button and a voice filled the room. It was a Koran voice, old and scratchy from being recorded centuries ago. But the words were clear. I have discovered something wonderful today. A human emotion called hope. It is the belief that tomorrow will be better than today, no matter how dark the present might seem. My human friend taught me this. She says it is what keeps her species going, even when everything seems lost. I think perhaps we Koran need hope too. I think we have been running from our feelings for too long. The recording ended. Vela sat in stunned silence. That was General Kato, Tay said. The one who fell in love with a human 300 years ago. He made recordings before he died. Most of them were destroyed, but a few survived. This is one of them. Where did you find this? It does not matter. What matters is what he says. Your people were not always afraid of feelings, Vela. The fear was taught to them. It was enforced by law and punishment. But underneath it all, Koran hearts still beat. They still want connection. They still need love. Vila thought about her mother, about the advisors she had known throughout her life, about the servants who moved through the palace like ghosts. Were they all hiding the same emptiness she had felt? Were they all pretending to be machines when they were really living beings with hopes and dreams and desires? I need more, she said. More recordings. More evidence. If I'm going to stand before the council, I need proof that changing the law will not destroy our society. Tay nodded. I have more. Testimony from Corinne, who have lived in human territories. Studies showing that emotional expression leads to better mental health, even in Koran physiology. Reports from hybrid colonies where humans and other species live together peacefully. Hybrid colonies? Places where different species share the same worlds. Some of them have been stable for centuries. They prove that interspecies cooperation is not just possible, but beneficial. Everyone prospers when different peoples work together. Vila felt something stir in her chest. Hope. That human emotion Tay had shown her. The belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Maybe it could. Maybe she could make it so the days continued to pass. Vela worked in secret, building her case. She contacted old allies, feeling out their positions. She studied the council members, looking for weaknesses, for sympathies, for cracks in their cold facades. Some of what she found gave her hope. Not every Koran was a true believer in the old ways. Some had doubts. Some had secretly wondered if the prohibition was necessary. Some had lost loved ones to the law, family members exiled for the crime of feeling too much. But there were also those who would never change. Rock was one of them. He had given her a week, and he had kept his word. But she could see him watching her, waiting for her to break, waiting for evidence that would justify his report to the council. On the sixth day, disaster struck. One of the palace guards saw Vila leaving Tay's quarters at dawn. He reported it to his captain. The captain reported it to Rock. By midday, rumors were spreading through the palace like wildfire. The queen had been visiting the human prisoner. The queen had been forming a bond. The queen had broken her own law. K came to her that evening. His face was hard, his eyes cold. "It is over," he said. "The council has called an emergency session. Tomorrow morning, they will demand the human's execution. They will demand your abdication. There is nothing I can do to stop it now." "I never asked you to stop it," Vila said calmly. Rock stared at her. "You planned this. You wanted them to find out." "I needed them to find out," she corrected. "If I had gone to the council on my own, they would have dismissed me as weak, as corrupted. But now they are the ones calling the session. Now they are the ones forcing the confrontation. And when I stand before them tomorrow, it will be their choice, not mine." "That brought us there." "You are playing a dangerous game. Your Majesty, I am playing the only game that matters." Vila stood and faced her old advisor. "I am fighting for the right to feel, the right to love, the right to be something more than a frozen statue on a frozen throne. If that destroys me, so be it. At least I will know I tried." Rock shook his head slowly. "I have served your family for 500 years. I have seen queens rise and fall. I thought you were different. I thought you were strong." "I am different," Vela said, "but not in the way you think. I am stronger than I have ever been, because I finally have something worth fighting for." She dismissed him with a wave of her hand. He left without another word. That night, Vila went to Tay for what might be the last time. She found him pacing his room, his face tight with worry. "I heard what happened," he said when she entered. "Vila, this is madness. You have to run. You have to escape while you still can. And go where? Hide in some remote corner of the galaxy while my empire falls apart?" She shook her head. "No, I will not run. I will face them. They will kill you. They might. Or they might listen. Either way, it will be my choice. My stand. For the first time in my life, I will do something because I believe in it, not because tradition demands it." Tay crossed the room and took her in his arms. It was still strange, this human gesture. Their bodies did not quite fit together. His warmth felt foreign against her cool skin. But it was also right. It was real. It was home. "I love you," he whispered. "I never thought I would say that to anyone, least of all a Koran queen. But it is true. I love you, Vela. I love you too." The words felt strange in her mouth. Her language did not really have a word for it. The closest translation was something like, "I choose to bind my life to yours." It was clumsy, formal, nothing like the simple human phrase. But she meant it with every part of her being. "What happens tomorrow?" Tay asked. "Tomorrow I fight. Tomorrow I stand before the council and tell them that everything they believe is wrong. That fear is not strength. That loneliness is not order. That love is not weakness. And if they do not listen..." Vela pulled back and looked into his dark eyes. "Then at least I will have tried. At least my last act as queen will be something I am proud of. Something that matters." They held each other until dawn. No more words. No more plans. Just two hearts beating together in the darkness. Preparing for whatever would come. Morning arrived too quickly. The council chamber was vast. A circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Hundreds of Koran filled those seats. Nobles, advisors, military leaders, religious figures. The most powerful beings in 12 star systems all gathered to witness the fall of a queen. Or so they thought. Vela entered through the main doors, dressed in her full ceremonial robes. Her crown gleamed on her head. Her golden eyes swept across the crowd. meeting every gaze that dared to meet hers. Behind her, in chains, walked Tay. The council had demanded his presence. They wanted him to watch as he was sentenced to death. They wanted the queen to see her shame made public. They did not know that this was exactly what Vela wanted. Rok stood at the head of the council, his gray face set in stone. He read the charges in a voice that echoed through the chamber. Queen Vela, you stand accused of violating the prohibition of interspecies bonding. You have formed an emotional attachment to a human prisoner. You have brought shame upon the throne and corruption upon the empire. How you answer these charges? The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on Vela. Every heart waited for her response. She climbed the steps to the central platform. She stood there, alone, facing the gathered might of her empire, and she smiled. I am guilty, she said. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Murmurs of shock and anger. Rock's face remained expressionless, but his eyes glittered with triumph. The queen confesses, he announced. By her own admission, she has broken. I am not finished, Vela interrupted. Her voice rang out like a bell, silencing the crowd. I am guilty of breaking the law, but the law itself is guilty of a greater crime. Your Majesty, Rock warned. Be careful what you say. Be careful? Vela laughed. I have been careful my entire life. I have been careful and cold and perfect, just as you all expected me to be. And where has it gotten me? Where has it gotten any of us? It is your heart waking up, Tay said gently. It has been asleep for a long time. The pain will pass. What comes after is worth it. She looked at him through her teeth. 3 months passed like water through fingers. 3 months of secret meetings, whispered conversations, and slowly opening hearts. The frozen world of Korra continued its slow orbit around its dying sun, but inside the palace, something new was growing. Something warm. Something dangerous. Vela changed in ways she did not notice at first. She smiled more, though she tried to hide it. She hummed songs when she walked through the empty corridors, then stopped herself when servants appeared. She found herself staring out windows for long moments, thinking of nothing but a human face with dark eyes and a gentle smile. Her advisors noticed. Of course they did. Rock watched her with growing concern. He had served the royal family for over 500 years. He knew the signs of corruption. He had seen what happened when Korran allowed human emotions to infect their minds. But he said nothing. Not yet. He was a patient creature. He would gather evidence first. Then he would act. Tay knew they were being watched. He was not stupid. He had survived diplomatic missions to dozens of hostile worlds. He knew how to read the signs of danger. The extra guards outside his door. The servants who appeared at strange hours. The feeling of eyes on his back whenever he moved. We are not being careful enough, he told Vela one night. They were sitting in his room as always, the artificial stars glittering outside the sealed window. Your people suspect something. Let them suspect, Vela said. She reached out and took his hand. Such a simple gesture. On Earth, people touched each other all the time. Friends hugged. Lovers held hands. Families embraced. But for Korran, touch was rare. Touch meant vulnerability. Touch meant weakness. Now, holding his hand, Vela understood why humans did it. There was power in connection. Warmth in contact. It made her feel less alone, less like a statue on a throne, and more like a living being. You are a queen, Tay reminded her gently. If they discover what we are doing, the consequences will be severe. I am the queen, she corrected. I make the laws. I can unmake them too, can you? Your entire society is built on those laws. 300 years of tradition. Trillions of citizens who believe what you believe. Or what you used to believe. He squeezed her hand. Change is not easy, Vela. even for queens. She knew he was right. She had thought about it many times. The law against interspecies bonding was not just a rule. It was a foundation. It shaped everything about Koran society. How they viewed humans. How they viewed themselves. How they viewed emotion itself. To change that law would be to change the very nature of her people. And she did not know if she had that power. But when she looked at Tay, when she saw the kindness in his eyes and felt the warmth of his hand, she wanted to try. For the first time in her long life, she wanted something more than power, more than order, more than the cold perfection of an empire that never changed. She wanted love. "Tell me about your family," she said, changing the subject. "You never talk about them." Tay's smile faded slightly. "There is not much to tell. My mother died when I was young. My father raised me alone. He was a teacher, a scholar of alien languages and cultures. He believed that understanding was the key to peace. That if different species could just talk to each other, really talk, they would find more in common than they expected." And was he right? Sometimes. Tay looked out at the stars. Sometimes understanding is not enough. Some species are too different, too set in their ways, too afraid of change. He turned back to her. "But not you. You are different. I knew it the moment I saw you. How could you know that?" "Your eyes," he said. "They were cold on the surface, like ice over a lake. But underneath, I could see the water moving. I could see that you wanted more than what you had. You just needed someone to show you it was possible." Vila felt her heart beating faster. It was strange, this feeling. Her people had two hearts, and usually they beat in perfect rhythm, slow and steady. But now they were racing, like drums building to a climax. "What is this called?" she asked. "This feeling when you look at someone and your heart speeds up? When you cannot stop thinking about them? When you want to be near them all the time?" Tay smiled softly. "We call it falling in love. Falling." Vila considered the word. "That is strange. It sounds like something dangerous. Like losing control." "It is dangerous," Tay admitted. "But it is also beautiful. The most beautiful thing in the universe, my father used to say. When you fall in love with someone, you are trusting them with the most precious thing you have. Your heart, your happiness, your future. And what happens if they drop you? What happens if they betray that trust? Then you break," Tay said simply. "You break into 1,000 pieces, and it takes a long time to put yourself back together. Sometimes you never do. Some people walk around with broken hearts their whole lives, never fully healing. That sounds terrible." It is. But the alternative is worse." He reached up and touched her face. His fingers were warm against her cool skin. "The alternative is never falling at all. Never taking the risk. Never knowing what it feels like to love someone so much that your whole world changes color." Vila closed her eyes. His touch sent waves of sensation through her body. It was overwhelming, terrifying, wonderful. She had lived for 300 years, but she had never felt anything like this. "I think," she whispered, "I think I am falling." "I know," Tay said. "I am falling too." That night, they did not just talk. They sat together in silence, holding hands, watching the stars. It was simple, ordinary, the kind of thing humans did every day. But for Vila, it was revolutionary. It was proof that connection was possible. That warmth existed even in the coldest corners of the universe. She left before dawn, as always. She had appearances to maintain, meetings to attend, an empire to rule. But her mind was not on any of it. Her mind was still in that small room, still holding a human hand, still feeling that strange, sweet falling dot. The weeks continued. Their meetings became more frequent, more intense. Tay taught her human poetry, and she found herself moved by the words of people long dead. He taught her about human art, and she saw beauty in the chaos of colors and shapes. He taught her human history, and she learned that his species had survived war and plague and disaster. Not because they were strong, but because they refused to give up. She began to understand why the Corinne feared humans. It was not because humans were weak. It was because humans were unstoppable. They did not fight with weapons alone. They fought with hope, with love, with a belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Those were dangerous weapons indeed. Vila started to change her behavior in public ways. Small changes at first. She ordered the human servants to be treated better. She reduced the punishments for minor crimes. She asked her advisors to explore the possibility of peace talks with Earth. Each change was small, insignificant by itself. But together, they formed a pattern. A pattern that Rock recognized all too well. He requested a private meeting with the Queen. "Your Majesty," he said, standing before her throne, "I have served your family for 500 years. I have given my life to this empire. I hope you will hear my words with that in mind." Vila nodded. "Speak, Rock." "You are changing," he said. "Everyone can see it. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you make decisions. You are becoming soft, emotional, human." The last word was an insult, and he meant it as one. "Be careful, advisor," Vela said coldly. "You speak to your queen." "I speak to save my queen," Rock replied. "I have seen this before. The signs are unmistakable. You have formed a bond with the human prisoner. You have allowed him to infect you with his feelings." Vela's heart stopped. Both of them at the same time. For a moment, she could not breathe. "That is a serious accusation," she said when she found her voice. "It is a serious matter." Rock stepped closer. "I am not blind, Your Majesty. I know about your secret visits. I know about your conversations. I know about—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Your feelings. You have been spying on me. I have been protecting you. Protecting the Empire. It is my duty." He bowed his head. "I have not told anyone else. Not yet. I wanted to give you a chance to end this madness before it is too late." "End it?" Vila stood from her throne. Her golden eyes blazed. "You want me to end the only thing that has made me feel alive in 300 years? "I want you to remember who you are," Rock said. "You are the Queen of the Corin Empire. You are not some lovesick child playing games with a human pet. Your people depend on you. The laws depend on you. Everything depends on you being strong." "Strong?" Vala laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call this? Is this strength? 300 years of loneliness? 300 years of feeling nothing? I have been a statue, Rock. A frozen statue on a frozen throne, pretending to be alive. That is not strength. That is death without the dignity of dying." "It is order," Rock said firmly. "Order is everything. Without order, there is chaos. Without chaos, there is destruction. The human is filling your head with dangerous ideas. He's making you weak. He's making me real." The words hung in the air between them. Rock stared at his queen, and for the first time in 500 years, he looked afraid. Not of her power, but of her change. Of what she was becoming. "If you do not end—" She turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. "Look at yourselves. Look at what we have." The news spread across the empire like light from a newborn star. The law had fallen. The queen had chosen a human. Everything the Karin people believed was being questioned, challenged, torn apart, and rebuilt. Some called it the end of civilization. Some called it the beginning of a new age. Most did not know what to call it at all. They simply watched, waited, and wondered what would happen next. Rock disappeared the night after the council vote. Some said he fled to the outer colonies. Others said he took his own life rather than watch the empire he had served crumble. Vela did not search for him. She had too much work to do. The first month was chaos. Protests erupted on a dozen worlds. Some demanded a return to the old ways. Others celebrated in the streets, finally free to express emotions they had hidden their whole lives. Families were reunited. Exiles began returning from the frozen moons. Ancient grudges surfaced, old wounds reopened. But through it all, Vela and Tay stood together. They appeared before the people not as queen and consort, but as partners, equals. They spoke of the future they wanted to build. A future where different species could live together. A future where feelings were not crimes. A future where love was strength, not weakness. Not everyone listened. Not everyone believed. But enough did. Enough to keep the empire from tearing itself apart. Enough to take the first steps towards something new. Tay became an ambassador. Not for Earth, but for the idea of cooperation itself. He traveled to worlds throughout the empire, meeting with governors and generals, merchants and farmers. He listened to their fears and addressed their concerns. He showed them that humans were not the monsters they had been taught to fear. Vela reformed the government. She disbanded the council that had nearly destroyed her and created a new one. This time, humans were allowed to serve. Not many at first, just a handful, but it was a start. A symbol of what was possible. They faced resistance at every turn. Old beliefs do not die easily. 300 years of propaganda could not be erased in a month or a year or even a decade. There were assassination attempts on both of them. There were rebellions on distant worlds. There were moments when it seemed like everything would collapse, but they survived, together. 1 year after the law fell, Val and Tay stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Below them, thousands of beings had gathered. Corinne and humans standing side by side. Some were holding hands. Some were embracing. Some were simply talking, learning about each other, discovering that they were not so different after all. A year ago, I stood alone on a frozen throne, Vela said softly. I thought I had everything. I thought I was complete. But I was empty, Tay. So empty that I did not even know what I was missing. And now? He asked. She turned to look at him. His dark eyes still held that warmth she had first noticed in her throne room, that light that had drawn her out of the darkness. Now I am full, she said. Full of love, full of hope, full of all the things I was taught to fear. She smiled. You saved me, Tay. You came to my world as a prisoner, and you set me free. You saved yourself, he corrected gently. I just showed you the door. You were the one brave enough to walk through it. She kissed him then, in full view of the crowd below. A Corin queen and a human. Their lips meeting, their hearts joining. It was a sight that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Now it was a symbol, a promise, a declaration that love knew no borders. The crowd cheered. Not all of them, but most. The sound rolled up to the balcony like a wave, washing over them, carrying them forward into a future neither of them could have imagined. That night, there was a ceremony. Not a coronation. Not a wedding in the traditional sense. Something new, created for a new age. A binding, they called it. A joining of two lives, to hearts, two peoples. Vela wore silver robes embroidered with stars. Tay wore the simple suit he had worn when they first met, because he said it felt right. They stood in the center of a great hall, surrounded by representatives from every world in the Empire and ambassadors from Earth, and 100 other species. The ceremony was simple. No ancient rituals. No sacred texts. Just two people making promises to each other in front of everyone they knew. I was taught that love is weakness, Vila said, her voice carrying through the silent hall. I was taught that feeling is corruption. I was taught that humans were inferior creatures who would destroy everything we built. I believed all of this for 300 years. She took Tay's hand. I was wrong. About all of it. Love is not weakness. It is the greatest strength in the universe. Feeling is not corruption. It is the essence of life. And humans are not inferior. They are teachers, healers, bringers of light to the darkest corners of existence. She turned to face him fully. Tay, you showed me what it means to be alive. You taught me to hope, to dream, to feel. You gave me courage when I was afraid and strength when I was weak. You loved me when I did not know how to love myself. Tears were flowing down her blue cheeks, but she did not wipe them away. She was done hiding her emotions. I choose you, she said. Not because you are useful or politically advantageous or strategically important. I choose you because you make me better. Because the universe is brighter with you in it. Because I cannot imagine facing tomorrow without you by my side. Tay squeezed her hand. His own eyes were wet. I came to this world expecting to die, he said. I came hoping that maybe, somehow, I could change one mind, plant one seed of peace. I never imagined I would find you. He laughed softly. When I first saw you on your throne, I thought you were the most beautiful and the most terrifying being I had ever met. Cold as ice, sharp as a blade, untouchable as a distant star. But then I looked into your eyes, and I saw something else. Something hidden. Something waiting. Something that wanted to break free. He reached up and touched her face. Vela, you are the bravest person I have ever known. Not because you led armies or ruled empires. Because you dared to question everything you believed. Because you risked everything you had for the chance to feel something real. That takes more courage than any battle ever fought. I choose you, he continued. Not as a queen or a political ally or a symbol of change. I choose you as a person. As a partner. As the one I want to walk beside for whatever time we have left. Whether that is decades or centuries, whether we face peace or war, whether the universe celebrates us or condemns us, I choose you. And I choose you, she replied. The hall erupted in applause. Karin, who had never shown emotion in public, were weeping openly. Humans were cheering, hugging strangers, celebrating a moment that had seemed impossible just a year ago. Vela and Tay did not notice. They only saw each other. They kissed, and in that kiss was everything. All the pain of the past. All the hope of the future. All the love that had been denied for 300 years and was finally free. The years that followed were not easy. Change never is. There were setbacks and disappointments, enemies and obstacles. Not everyone in the empire accepted the new ways. Some never would, but slowly, steadily, the universe shifted. Human colonies joined the empire as equals, not conquered subjects. Karin children grew up learning about emotions instead of suppressing them. Art and music flourished. Poetry was written. Songs were sung. For the first time in centuries, the Karin people remembered how the trade agreements were signed with Earth. Joint research projects explored the mysteries of the universe. Diseases were cured. Technologies were shared. Wars that had burned for generations finally ended, and at the center of it all, a queen and a human walked together. Growing older, growing wiser, growing more in love with each passing year, Vela lived for another 400 years. An extraordinary span even for a Karin. She watched her empire transform. She saw grandchildren, great-grandchildren, generations that carried the blood of both species in their veins. Tay lived 92 years, a long life for a human. Not nearly long enough for either of them. but they made every moment count. When he grew old, she stayed by his side. When he grew sick, she held his hand. When he took his last breath, she was there, just as she had promised. "Do not cry for me," he whispered at the end. "I have had the most wonderful life. Because of you. I am not crying because you are leaving," Vila said through her tears. "I am crying because I had you at all. Because out of all the beings in the universe, I was lucky enough to find you." He smiled one last time. That warm, human smile that had started everything. "Thank you," he said, "for breaking your own law, for choosing love over fear, for being brave enough to feel." "Thank you," she replied, "for teaching me how." He closed his eyes. She held him until the end, and then she kept going, because that was what Tay had taught her. That loss was not the end. That grief was just love with nowhere to go. That the best way to honor someone you loved was to keep living, keep feeling, keep making the universe better. She ruled for 3 more centuries. She saw the Koran Empire become something no one had thought possible. A beacon of hope in a dark universe. A place where different species lived together in peace. A home for all who sought warmth in the cold void of space. When she finally stepped down from her throne, she did it with a smile. Not the cold, empty smile of her youth. A real smile, full of memory and meaning. "I have been many things," she told the Gad.